What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Pens and Tea. My name is Carrie, and today we're going to be talking about how I have reined in, managed, honed, whatever you want to call it, my ink obsession. Like, real big problem. I posted a video back in December about my greatest fountain pen shame, or I don't quite remember what I called it. I'm pretty sure it was my greatest fountain pen shame. And that was my ink sample addiction problem, hoarding. Like, at the time I filmed that, I believe I had 70 something samples, but I've had more than that before. Like, I have had probably at the worst, like about 150 roughly. But the year 2022, I was determined to use up as many samples as possible, to the point where I basically only ever use samples and never really even touched my bottles, which I also have a lot. If you watched the 2022 ink collection video that I post at the end of every year, you'll know that it's a lot. And that is my goal to fix this year for 2023, to pare down the bottle collection. But before I can move on to another problem, I have to celebrate the solution to a different problem. And that is all of my samples. So before I show you exactly what I did, I want to let you know a little bit of the backstory. So when I first got into fountain pens, I did it primarily by accident. I've told the story a million times, but basically bought a fountain pen through Amazon just because I didn't want to pay for shipping. Hated it, then ended up loving it once I found out the whole relationship between the pen, the ink, and the paper. Fast forward to finding ink samples. Thank you so much, Brian Goulet, and all of the videos that you've put online and that content, because A, it is what made me go from hating to loving fountain pens, and B, you kind of threw me in the deep end with all the samples you guys offered, because man, I have spent probably way too much money on ink samples, like way too much money on ink samples, but that was my thing. I didn't have very many pens. Ink samples were cheap. Couldn't afford very many pens. Ink samples were cheap. You could get like 10 ink samples for the price of one bottle. And I was hooked. And I would buy like just so many samples all of the time, everywhere. And I kept collecting. And I changed my ink. And still to this day, I change my ink pretty frequently. And I was just flying through them. But the thing is I was collecting them faster than I could actually use them, because even places like Goulet Pens, who only do 2 milliliter samples, versus others like Venice, and there's like a Desk Bandit and things like that do 4. 2 milliliters of ink can still sometimes be 4 or 5 fills for certain cartridges and converters. So, especially when I was into like Kafeco Sports and whatnot, because they're so small, that I would fill it up once or twice and still have half of a sample. So I would put that away, and then I would grab another sample. So what I did when I realized I had over like 150 of them was I dedicated myself in 2022 to going through and finishing all of these samples. Now, I didn't quite make it. I still have a fair amount of samples, which I will show you in a moment, but I am down to 33 samples, you guys. Like, bananas. So, what I did was I just used samples exclusively. If I inked up a pen and did not like the sample, I did not make myself finish it. And that was a rule that I had in the beginning, was even if I didn't like it upon first usage, I would still like force myself essentially to use all 2 milliliters or 4 milliliters, however much was in there, because otherwise I thought it was a waste. And it is, but I hated it. And it would take me like forever to actually finish it, because I would never want to write with that pen because I didn't like the ink. So that was a rule I took off of myself. And that was like the liberator. It's like if you're a reader and putting something into like DNF, you give it a good go, but eventually you're just going to know that you don't like it and it's just going to be a struggle. So that was the game changer for me. If I did not like it, I got rid of it. Now, if I didn't like it after like a sentence or something, no, I would give it a few pages worth of a journal, few pages worth of a journal and doodling. And I would try it in a couple different papers because sometimes the color of a paper will change. Like Tomoe River paper, for example, versus like a Rhodia paper even. They're going to be completely different. So I didn't like write it off within the first instinct, but I didn't force myself to use the whole thing. So that helped. I also stopped buying as many ink samples. Now, I still did. Don't get me wrong. I still bought ink samples, but I stopped buying like 8 or 10 at a time. Instead, I got 1 or 2 at a time. So that was game changer number 2. Game changer number 3 was, again, being fully committed to this and stopping using my bottles. That made a huge, huge difference. Even though like I said, I have a bottle problem, but that's later. And then what I've recently done, now that I've gotten it down to, I had about 50 or so. But where I was kind of sitting at was I had a lot of like about 20 of them that I knew I didn't like because the sample was like about half done. So I'd already used half of the sample, but I was just hanging on to it. Or I was hanging on to samples that were like given to me for free. So example, if you just watched my video that I talked about things that I bought for my birthday, I got 8 free ink samples from Goulet pens for my birthday. A couple of them are shimmering inks. I do not like shimmering inks, but sometimes I like to hang on to them when I like for Christmas time. So if I use a glass tip pen, I'll write notes with them. So I've been hanging on to them, but I never use them. So I have actually hung on to one. This is Diamine Jack Frost, because I actually really do like the look of this one. It's a deep blue with a red sheen and a silver luster. So I hung on to one that I will use around Christmas time with a glass tip pen. And I got rid of the rest because I'm never going to use them. So that helped. So then I pared it down to what I have now, which is 33, although there's only 32 in here because I have since inked another pen up. And I did purchase the new Goulet Pens ink sample vial holder, which is this guy right here. And it has their logo at the end. I used to have their older ink sample vials. I used to have 2 of them where the ends were white and you had to like slide them together and build them on your own. I forget exactly how many ink samples that held. These hold 40, and I want to say the other ones weren't quite that much, but I don't remember. But what I do remember is that you had to be careful because they weren't as sturdy as this one was. I wasn't ever afraid of them breaking or falling apart, but this one is definitely more sturdy. You don't have to put it together. It's shipped to you in one solid piece. So I did purchase this one, and this also has a slightly slimmer profile than the other one. But the big thing that I've done is I have finally invested the time to put the color on top. And I took them out of Ziploc bags. So I had all of my ink samples in Ziploc bags. You imagine 150 ink samples just chilling in Ziploc bags. It was a nightmare to try and find anything that I wanted to use. It was a nightmare to actually go in, pick out an ink, especially if I didn't have one in mind. Sometimes I did like a color. I'd want like maybe a blue ink, but then I would have to filter through 2 or 3 Ziploc bags to find the blue ink that I actually want. That was a big hurdle for me to actually use my ink samples. So I thought, okay, I'll get the vial again, or the holder again, and do 2 things. 1, I am never allowed, and I'm going to be very strict with myself, I am never allowed to at any point have more ink samples than can fit in this one holder. This holds 40. Therefore, I am never allowed to have more than 40 ink samples ever again. that is a promise to myself that I will hold. I can only buy ink samples if I have room to fit it in this holder. So that's rule number 1. Rule number 2 is I finally put all of the color on top. And I'm going to flip the camera around so I can show you closer, because there's a couple things I've learned that I think other people might benefit from this. All right, so the very first thing you can probably tell is that some of these look shiny. And that is the thing that I wish I would have fixed. So what I would have liked to have done is actually just glue the sample onto the lid of the vial. But I went back and forth about it, because when you tape it, it's kind of bulky and you can see the tape on the actual lid itself. But if I had glued it, I wouldn't have had that problem. It would have been more like these guys. Now this was sent to me like this. I didn't actually do it, but this one is like a sticker with the color on it instead of glue. And it does come off fairly easily, but that is kind of the look I was going for. But 2 things happened. 1, I don't have glue, believe it or not. I just had tape. And I didn't want to use it as an excuse to not do the project by not having glue, because otherwise that excuse will just keep being an excuse and I'll never do it. So what I did was I took a Rhodia dot pad and I traced out the bottom of the vial. And then I took a Q-tip and swabbed out the little circles. And then I just cut them out and then I taped them to the top. Now, like I said, it would look better with glue or a sticker than it would the way that I've done it. But like I said, I didn't want to wait as an excuse to just not do it. And I also wanted to use like Rhodia or a paper that would actually show the real color of the ink. I didn't want to use a paper that was too absorbent because then it kind of doesn't really show accuracy for the ink itself. But this way I can tell what it is at a glance. And it didn't take too long because, like I said, I only had 33. I'm down to 32 now. To do, whereas like the more you have, the more time intensive that's going to be. So keep that in mind, but it is well worth it. These samples here look a little more janky. These ones I got from Desk Bandit because the lid isn't flush. So the paper is actually sitting on the inside and I've just sort of taped over it so that like if I tip it, the thing doesn't fall out. Whereas the samples that are actually from Goulet pens are like flush to the lid. And some of the samples, like I said, are a bit different, but functions the same. The thing with this holder is that it doesn't fit smaller ink samples. So there's a couple ink samples that I've got from Wonder Pens. I despise the vials that Wonder Pens uses because you can't fill from them and they're so small and they fall right through these holes. So I empty them out into these containers that Goulet pens have, and seems to be the primary sizing that everyone else. So like I have some that are from Pen Chalet, and I have some that are from these are Desk Bandit. Now these are a little bit taller, but same width. And then I even have some from Van Ness pens. Yeah, this one here. They all seem to use the same. Wonder Pens doesn't. Drives me absolutely bonkers. But I have a few spare empty ones, so I've emptied those in there, and I just taped the name to the top. So if you're going to do this, what I recommend is use a paper that you use frequently so you know that it's color accurate. 2, potentially use glue instead of tape, because it is a little bit messy with tape, or find a sticker like this if you want, but just know that stickers are going to be more absorbent, so you're going to lose a little bit of color accuracy there. But that's roughly the things that I would change going forward, is that I'm going to try and find a way to get rid of the tape because I don't really like the look of the tape. But yeah, that's about it. And then where I store that in general to make it super, super obvious. And I don't know how I'm going to be able to move both of these at the same time. Let's find out. All right, so we got the bottom of my desk drawer here, where all of my ink bottles are. It just slots right in there like so, my little toesies. So now it's up front and in center. I have all of the bottles there. I've got all my samples there. I just need to open the drawer, decide what I want, take it out, and easy peasy. There is significantly less obstacles now for me to actually be able to use the ink. That's been my solution. It's been working really, really great for me so far. But I want to know, because a lot of you, when I posted that video that I was talking about my actual like problem with them, a lot of you said that you're in the same boat. So I'm curious, what did you do to sort of help store them, use them up, go through them? Do you even consider it a problem and you're just cool with it having, you know, a whole bunch of them? Let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know if you already do something like this, and a potential solution for the tape issue. Like I said, I know I could glue them. Do you know of any like pre-made stickers that are not too absorbent so that they like it remains color accurate? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'm definitely open to any more suggestions, although I'm pretty sure this is the method that I will just stick with for all of time. And then of course the key clutch is that I am never allowed to have more than 40 ink samples ever. And now my ink bottle problem is going to be the thing that I need to concentrate on this year. Because what you saw in that drawer is only like a third of what I have. Yeah. But that's a future me problem. But what is a present you problem? A solution that you can fix right now is your desire to watch more of these videos by hitting the subscribe button so you don't miss any videos Monday and Friday, the occasional Tuesday. If you hit that like button, it lets me and YouTube know that this video is cool and suggests it to more awesome people like yourself. If you want to help support me and what I do on this channel, please check out the link in the description to my Patreon account. But as always, I appreciate you for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Big shout out to all my Patreon members. Let me know if you prefer this quick version or the older version where I went through one by one, but I appreciate all of you so much.